Thank you, Speaker. I thank the member for Wallsend for raising this critical issue and alerting us all here to yet another of the ongoing issues with the dysfunctional New South Wales public housing system as presided over by this Liberal National Government. In May 2020, I asked the then Minister for Water, Property and Housing, Melinda Pavey, the member for Oxley, who was just in the chamber then, a number of questions that are key to this debate. The first question was how many public housing dwellings were sold between January and May 2020? How many new public housing dwellings were completed in that same period? And the third question, which is directly on target for this debate, how many public housing dwellings were vacant for more than 1 month as of April 2020? I'll start with the reply to the last question. As of April 2020, there were 225 relettable public housing dwellings that had been vacant for more than 30 days, and of these, 72 required significant maintenance. I ask this question: why, when we have a public housing waiting list of 50,000 applications, are we seeing this level of vacancy rate? And why are 70 of them marked as uninhabitable? I'm sure those figures are stitched up because I'm sure that we could all name multiple vacant dwellings throughout our electorates that had the same issue. During the same period, we saw 103 public housing dwellings sold and a paltry 45 public housing dwellings completed. So we are losing our public housing stock. And this isn't just an issue in the electorate of Newtown, where I represent, in the community of Wallsend, where the member who brought this motion to the chamber represents, or the member for Ballina's own electorate. I note she's in the chamber too. It's also an issue in the member for Oxley's electorate, the person who was the Minister for Housing, overseeing this disastrous housing situation. In fact, in Kempsey this year, a 16-year-old young woman who had been homeless on and off for most of her life was offered a home in a refurbished, flood-damaged cabin in a former derelict caravan park. The Mid-North Coast Specialist Youth Homelessness Service, YP Space, found the cabins in Port Macquarie and could only afford to purchase them because they were flood damaged. They sold off most of their property and assets to invest in disused and derelict caravan park in the centre of town in order to provide some form of affordable housing for people aged between 16 and 25 who are experiencing homelessness. I know that the Minister, when she was in here, or the former Minister I should say, when she was in here, mentioned that there was a process. There was a process. Well, I can tell everyone in this chamber the process is broken, because if you have hundreds of people that are homeless sitting on a priority housing waiting list and you have $51 billion of public housing assets and you somehow fail to leverage that to deliver more public housing and solve the housing crisis in this state, then you have a serious problem. In the electorate of Newtown, as elsewhere throughout New South Wales, land and housing sell off public housing at a greater rate. They have 100% of public housing on a block. They privatise 70%. They claim under the Communities Plus model that they're going to be delivering more housing, but what they deliver is more density, more gifts to their developer mates, and absolutely no solution to the housing crisis. The surplus that they gain from those sales are then put back into the private market, into the coffers for other interested developers, and what we see is no solution to the public housing crisis. Our office has a list of people waiting to be housed or transferred, as I'm sure every member in this chamber does. They need more habitable homes. They need a safe and secure place to live. No words can describe the level of frustration and trauma that people have experienced in this Dickensian situation of public housing in this state. We have facts and lack outsourcing all their care and responsibility to 1-800 lines that people sit on for hours. We have a punitive and petty system that demonstrates that when it comes to being a landlord in the state of New South Wales, this Liberal National Government is the worst.